In the quaint little town of Wobble Creek, where the grass was as green as a frog's belly and the sky was painted in shades of blue that made you want to jump up and dance, lived three best friends, Benny the bear, Lila the fox, and Ollie the owl. They were a peculiar trio, known throughout Wobble Creek for their hilarious adventures and their knack for getting into amusing predicaments. One sunny afternoon, Lila proposed an idea that made everyone's ears perk up.
Let's have a pancake party!
She exclaimed, her bushy tail flicking with excitement. Benny's eyes sparkled like fresh dew on morning leaves, while Ollie hooted in agreement from his perch on a nearby branch.
Pancakes, yummy.
Benny roared with glee. His belly rumbled so loudly it sounded like thunder rolling through the hills.
But who will make them?
I can! I'm an expert pancake chef.
Chirped Lila confidently as she strutted around like she was already wearing an apron. Ollie fluffed his feathers thoughtfully and said,
But we need to gather supplies first. We need flour, eggs, syrup, and lots of giggles.
With that agreed upon, they set off on their wobbly adventure around town. First stop, Grumpy Gus's grocery. Now Grumpy Gus was known for two things: his thick black mustache that looked like a walrus had taken up residence on his face, and his grumpiness that could turn sunshine into shadows faster than a storm cloud could roll in. As they entered the store, Ollie swooped down from his branch to grab some flour.
Excuse me, Mr. Gus. We'd like to buy some flour for our pancake party.
Gus glared at them over his spectacles with eyes sharper than knives.
Flour? What do I look like? A bakery?
He grumbled. Benny stepped forward boldly and said with all his bear-sized charm,
But sir, we're having a pancake party. Think of all the happy faces.
Gus crossed his arms tightly across his walrus mustache, but couldn't resist chuckling at Benny's charming smile. Finally relenting, he handed over a big bag of flour with an exaggerated sigh.
Fine, but only because I want to hear about these pancakes later?
With supplies in paw and wing, flour in one hand or wing, and eggs balanced precariously on Lila's back, they danced out of Grumpy Gus's store, laughing all the way to Sweet Sarah's syrup shop. Sarah was as sweet as her syrup. Her smile could melt even the iciest heart, which was perfect considering how much syrup they needed.
Hello there. What brings my favorite trio here today?
She called out cheerfully.
Pancake party.
Oh, goodness gracious. You'll need plenty of syrup then.
Sarah giggled while pouring them bottles upon bottles of her finest maple syrup, until it looked more like they were carrying giant golden treasure chests than breakfast supplies. Finally equipped with everything they needed, except maybe more giggles, they hurried back to Benny's cozy cave, which had just enough room for all three friends, plus some fluffy cushions shaped like clouds. Once inside Benny's cave kitchen, which had walls lined with honey pots because what bear doesn't love honey, Lila took charge as head chef while Ollie set up everything perfectly. Bowls here, spatulas there, a true kitchen masterpiece. As Lila mixed ingredients together energetically, with just enough flour flying everywhere, Benny couldn't help but sneak tastes along the way. The batter tickled his nose dramatically each time he dipped in, just when it seemed nothing could go wrong.
What is this? The pancake monster has attacked me.
He squawked dramatically while shaking off bits of gooey goodness from his feathers. Benny roared with laughter alongside Lila, who pretended to shield herself with a spatula, declaring war against all flying pancake monsters lurking about. After much giggling, and possibly too many taste tests, the pancakes were finally ready. They stacked them higher than Mount Wobble Peak itself, before drizzling generous amounts of maple syrup over them, until they shimmered like jewels under the sunbeam, streaming through Benny's cave window. As they sat down at their picnic blankets spread across soft grass outside under magnificent blooming cherry blossom trees swaying gently above them, each bite brought waves of laughter, filled joy into every corner crevice among their hearts. And so began their legendary pancake party. It wasn't just about eating pancakes, it turned into something much greater. A day filled with friendship forged by silly smiles, sticky hugs coated in syrupy sweetness, all while sharing stories far beyond any breakfast table. From then on, every time someone mentioned pancakes in Wobble Creek, the townsfolk would remember one very funny day when three outrageous friends turned ordinary ingredients into extraordinary laughter, forever echoing through winding paths throughout their lovely town. In the bustling town of Wobbleville, where the sun always seemed to smile and the clouds floated like fluffy marshmallows, there lived three quirky friends: Benny the bear, Lila the ladybug, and Timmy the tortoise. Each of them was as different as a cat wearing a bow tie and a fish wearing a top hat.
Benny was a big bear with a heart even bigger than his belly, which jiggled like jelly when he laughed. He wore an oversized red cap that flopped comically to one side, and his fur was as soft as cotton candy.
Lila, on the other hand, was small but sprightly. Her wings sparkled with every color of the rainbow, and she flitted about like a tiny sparkler on New Year's Eve.
Timmy, with his wise old eyes and slow-moving ways, carried his home on his back, a cozy little shell that looked like it belonged in a pirate's treasure chest.
One sunny day, they decided to have an adventure at Wobbleville's great Gumball Garden, a magical place where gumballs grew on trees. The trees themselves were tall and twisty, their trunks resembling pretzel sticks topped with branches that dripped with gumballs in flavors like strawberry swirl, blueberry blast, and even pickle surprise. As they arrived at the garden, Benny's eyes widened in delight.
Look at all those gumballs!
He exclaimed, nearly bouncing off the ground with excitement.
Let's race to see who can pick the biggest one first.
Timmy chuckled softly. He knew races weren't quite his style.
All right, on your mark, get set, go!
With that declaration, Benny took off running like a freight train while Lila zipped through the air like a shooting star. Timmy began his slow stroll toward the nearest gumball tree. He took one step forward, then another, and soon he realized he had forgotten what he was supposed to be doing.
Oh dear, what was it again? A race, a snack, a nap?
Meanwhile, Benny reached for the largest gumball, one that was so big it almost looked like it belonged in outer space. Just as he grabbed it with both paws and lifted it triumphantly into the air, it popped right in his face. Gumball juice streamed down over his fluffy cheeks while Lila erupted into giggles above him.
Oh no, I'm covered in berry goo!
Lila swooped down to help her friend clean up, but ended up getting splattered herself when another gumball fell from above. She looked like she had just taken a bath in raspberry jam. Together they laughed so hard, they nearly fell to their knees. Timmy finally caught up to them just then, slowly but surely, and couldn't help but chuckle at their sticky situation.
You two look more colorful than a box of crayons.
Well, at least our adventure is turning out deliciously messy.
Let's all get messy together.
Shouted Benny excitedly before racing towards another tree where more gumballs hung tantalizingly from low branches. And so began their silly game of Gumball Tag, where laughter filled Wobbleville like bubbles floating in fizzy soda pop. They chased each other around trees full of candy-colored orbs until they were all covered from head to toe in sticky gum flavors. Finally tired from all that fun, and maybe just a little too sticky, they collapsed onto soft patches of grass beneath an enormous gumdrop tree. A perfect spot for resting after their wild day. As they lay there looking up at puffy clouds shaped like silly animals, a dancing elephant here and an ice cream cone there, Timmy sighed contentedly.
You know, sometimes being different makes adventures even sweeter.
Benny nodded vigorously, while still trying to wipe some gooey mess off his nose. Lila fluttered her wings gleefully above them both. She could hardly agree more. And thus ended another unforgettable day in Wobbleville for three friends who learned that laughter truly is the best flavor of all, even if you end up looking quite ridiculous along the way. Once upon a time in the whimsical town of Giggleville, where the sun seemed to shine with a twinkle and flowers danced with laughter, lived three best friends, Benny the bumblebee, Clara the cat, and Freddy the frog. Each of them was as unique in personality as they were in appearance, and their adventures were as colorful as a rainbow after a summer storm. Benny was no ordinary bumblebee. He wore tiny glasses that perched on his nose like little caterpillars. With his buzzing voice that sounded like someone trying to hum while holding back giggles, he was always on the lookout for exciting new things to explore. Clara, sleek and sassy with fur that shimmered like fresh cream, had an insatiable curiosity that led her into all sorts of mischief. She had a knack for getting herself into trouble, but also knew how to charm her way out of it with her delightful purrs and playful antics. Lastly, there was Freddy, a jolly green frog who loved to leap into every pond he could find. His belly laugh echoed through Giggleville like a cheerful melody that could brighten even the cloudiest days.
I have an idea. Let's have a picnic by the Giggle River.
Oh boy, that sounds delicious. I'll bring my famous tuna sandwiches. They're so good they make you want to dance.
And I can bring my special fly pie. It's all the buzz, literally.
With their picnic items packed, a basket bursting with sandwiches and pies, the trio set off toward Giggle River, their laughter mixing harmoniously with the sounds of nature around them. As they arrived at their chosen spot, a shady patch under a giant willow tree, Benny laid out a bright checkered blanket while Clara arranged their delicious feast. Just as they settled down to eat, something unexpected happened. A gust of wind swept through Giggleville, rustling the leaves above like an orchestra warming up for a concert. Suddenly, Benny's glasses flew off his little nose. They soared through the air like a pair of flying saucers before landing right on Freddy's head.
Hey, I'm not wearing your glasses,
croaked Freddy as he stood tall atop his lily-pad throne while trying not to topple over from laughter. Clara burst into giggles at the sight. Not only did Benny look adorably baffled without his specs, but also Freddy looked quite comical wearing them crookedly over his bulging eyes.
Freddy looks like he's ready for school.
I'd rather leap through puddles than read books,
said Freddy indignantly, but couldn't help chuckling at himself too. Determined to get back his glasses without losing any more dignity, which was hard when you're known for your giggles, Benny buzzed around until he managed to snatch them back midair, only to find himself dizzy from spinning too quickly. He landed right in front of Clara's tuna sandwich.
Oops!
He exclaimed, just before plopping down face first into it.
Oh dear.
Clara laughed even harder as Benny emerged from her sandwich covered in creamy tuna like some peculiar bumblebee chef who just tried making dinner. Freddy rolled over in fits of laughter too, his croaks sounding less froggy and more like peals of joy echoing across Giggle River. Finally managing to regain composure amid all this hilarity, if you could call it that, they each dug into their food. Tuna sandwiches sprinkled with delightful giggles and fly pie piled high with laughter. As dusk began painting Giggleville in shades of pinks and oranges overhead, Benny declared between bites.
Next time we should have dessert first.
Dessert? But what would we have?
More pies made out of flies,
suggested Freddy cheekily, while giving a sly wink. The trio erupted into another fit of uncontrollable laughter that echoed along Giggle River until bedtime drew near, and stars began twinkling above them like playful fireflies joining their celebration under nature's canopy. And so ended yet another day filled with fun for Benny the Bumblebee, Clara the Cat, and Freddy the Frog, the trio whose friendship could turn any moment into an adventure worth sharing or turning into funny stories forevermore.